warm welcome to Money Sense. I'm Simon Caudery, and I'm joined in the studio this morning by my co-host Amy Hubble. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning.
Today's show was originally going to be a conversation with Erin Brosnahan, the chair of the Insurance Managers Association of Cayman, but she regrettably is unable to join us as she is off Ireland, had to leave Ireland for some meetings. So instead we are delighted, however, to be joined by Kevin Poole. Now, Kevin is the current chair of the Cayman Captive Forum. We'll explain all these acronyms in a short while. And we're going to talk about the captive insurance industry here in the Cayman Islands, what it is, what it does, and why it does it, and what its importance is to the community. Therefore, without further ado, it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Kevin Poole, Chair of the Cayman Captive Forum and also Client Services Director at Tartex, to Money Sense. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Simon. Good morning, everybody.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I said right as in my intro that we're going to be talking about captive insurance companies, and I guess the perhaps obvious question might be, let's start with a definition. What exactly is a captive insurance company?
Well, basically, in its simplest form, it's an insurance company that's set up by an organisation to insure the risks of its parent company. So it's basically a mini insurance company. So if you want to think of an example, perhaps you could think of somebody like Ford Motor Company, for example. They have a lot of different risks, as you can imagine. They have obviously risks associated with the vehicles that they produce. They also have a large number of employees that they employ, so they have workers' compensation risks, that type of thing. So it may well be that they might consider that the risks that they have, they're better than industry, and therefore they might decide, why should I pay premium to a regular insurance company? I could pay that premium to myself and manage those claims more successfully than perhaps another party does, and that's really what a captive insurance company does.
So presumably that has been driven a little bit. We hear, almost every month of every year that insurance prices are going up, whether it be health insurance, whether it be life insurance. That it equates to the same thing, workers' compensation insurance. The continuing increase in the cost of buying insurance has presumably been a catalyst over the years for companies to think about self-insuring in this way.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, as you say, insurance costs go up. There's more and more natural disasters that happen year on year, which helps drive up the insurance premiums. And those premiums are generally driven by what we would call the reinsurance market. So if, for example, you had a company like Allstate, because they advertise a lot on TV for home insurance and the like, if they have a large number of claims, they don't bear all those risks themselves, but they buy reinsurance from another insurance or reinsurance company to try and spread that risk. So that gets more expensive, the premium that's being charged to Allstate, so that affects everybody.
Is that something that only large companies typically do?
Not only large companies, we do see some in the mid-market who will also form captive insurance companies as well. So I would generally say that premiums of around $1 million plus would be needed to have your own insurance company, because the operating expenses generally run at about $100,000 per company, depending on what's involved.
And let me see if I understand this correctly then. Let's take your Ford Motor Company or any large US or potentially non-US company. They put a spreadsheet together and they figure out we're paying $5-6 million of insurance costs to a third party each year. Within that, they are obviously claiming back periodically from that insurance company. So they are making money back, perhaps not all the premium, perhaps more than the premium. But what you're basically saying is if they are less of a claimer than the average, then they are paying the average person's fee, even though they are a better risk. And over time, therefore, if they pay it into their own insurance company, they will have losses that will be less than the amount of money they've put in. And they will therefore have a surplus in their own insurance company. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and there's also perhaps some risks that for whatever reason they can't purchase in the regular insurance market, but they could design some policy forms to cover certain things that they might not be able to cover otherwise. So that's also a driver of why people form their own insurance company, and also it helps to access the reinsurance market. So as I explained, once you have your own insurance company, you can then buy insurance from another insurance company, which is called reinsurance.
Got you.
And that generally tends to be a little bit cheaper, buying reinsurance than buying it from the primary market.
Okay, so we've talked kind of high level about what captive insurance is. Let's sort of drill into some of the details. What sort of captive insurance or self-insurance actually goes on here in Cayman then? What sort of industries use Cayman as a jurisdiction, and since when have they used it, in fact?
Yeah, why Cayman?
Yeah, well, Cayman first got into the business of captive insurance back in the 1970s, and really the driver was in the medical malpractice insurance space.
But what do you mean by medical malpractice, just to be clear?
That's basically if a hospital buys some insurance in case they basically mess up, do something wrong, cut off the wrong leg or something like that, whatever.
We hope not.
They're obviously going to have a claim as a result of that. So captives first started actually in Bermuda, probably in the 1960s, and the first company that went to Bermuda was the Harvard Medical School, and they wanted to set up a captive to write some medical malpractice risks. And at the time, Bermuda said no. They thought medical malpractice was a risky line of business, and they didn't think that a company should be set up to write that business. Cayman said, well, we can help. So Cayman stepped in, and as a result of that, various other hospitals started coming to Cayman to set up their own insurance company. So that really started in the 1970s. which actually predated the insurance law, because the first insurance law in Cayman only came into being in 1979. So there were already a number of captive insurance companies and insurance companies in Cayman before there was any law. So they were kind of self-regulated, if you like. But obviously since then, laws and regulations have changed. So we know where we are. We have the insurance law of 2010 and the associated regulations. But overall now in Cayman there's around 700 captives, and around a third of those still relate to medical malpractice writers, so various hospital systems, whether it be physician groups, that type of thing, educational facilities in the medical field.
This may be going off on a slight tangent, but if I'm going to a hospital in the US, don't I almost want my hospital to have a self-insurance company, because it implies that they take they do fewer things wrong, because otherwise they're costing themselves more money, isn't that?
Yeah, that's very true. And really one of the drivers behind the formation of the captive is the whole risk management area. So if you focus a lot more closely on risk management, you're going to drive down the cost of your claims. And if you're driving down the cost of your claims, you think, well, I'm driving down the amount of claims and frequency of claims. So
cut off fewer of the wrong legs.
So exactly, yeah. So generally speaking, yes, it kind of a snowball effect as well. And generally what we find is that the people who sit on the board of these captive insurance companies are what you would call the C-suite executives. So they have very much more focused and invested time in reviewing the operations of this insurance company that they've hopefully set up in Cayman.
Now, you said about a third of the industry here in Cayman still relates to the medical area. What does the rest of the industry relate to then?
That's quite a broad section. We have a large number of group captives, and the group captives are generally those established by mid-market type clients. So they might be in the construction industry. We look after a number in the trucking industry, where they all come together and basically pool the risks that they have. But generally, they're better able to manage their risks in that format. And when they kind of get together and form their own insurance company, it gets quite competitive in that group captive space, because they have certain metrics around the performance, and nobody wants to be at the bottom of the list of the performing member of that particular group.
Yeah.
But also there's other entities, or single parent captives as we'd call them, that are established. So, for example, maybe McDonald's, something like that, might have a captive we look after. We look after people like Divers Alert Network, who listeners might be familiar with in the diving industry for dive accident insurance and that type of thing. So it's quite a broad spectrum of different risks that are covered.
If you're part of a group captive, I assume the premiums for that would be a little bit lower, just because you can then spread that risk out across numerous companies and industries.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, so if for example you set up a trucking captive, hopefully the premium at the end of the day will be less than industry, and as Simon was mentioning earlier, then there should be some dividends that are paid back to you. So instead of just paying that money away to a commercial insurance company, you're getting some benefit at the end of the day from those insurance premiums coming back to you.
Where are you seeing the most growth as far as new captives being formed, or specifically types of captives that are coming to Cayman now?
We're still seeing some in the medical field. That continues to be strong because of Cayman's reputation. But outside of that, we're seeing a lot of growth in the group captive space with our middle market clients. And also we're seeing some from outside of Cayman, from growth areas such as Australia. We've formed a couple of captives from Australia, so Cayman obviously seems a long way away from Australia, but we do have the expertise here on island to be able to do that. We also see some interest from Africa and other Asian regions and Latin America.
But principally the business historically in Cayman has been from North America, though, is that right?
Yeah, 90% of the current captives in Cayman come from North America.
And these are new captives that are forming primarily, or are we stealing them from another jurisdiction?
No, we form new ones, but we don't mind stealing a few of them again, yeah.
I'm sure there's a better word than stealing, but we'll let that one pass.
Poaching.
I'm not sure that's any better. Who are the main competitors then to Cayman? It seems as though if this is such a, inverted commas, lucrative industry, insofar as business has been growing for 20, 30 years, others would have wanted to get into this. And where are the competition?
Right, I think I mentioned that Cayman has around 700 captives, because SEMA published their statistics the other day for the end of September. But the competition really is other offshore domiciles. Bermuda would be the main competition. They're the largest captive domicile, Cayman second, just by a short margin. And then outside of that, there's a number of captive domiciles now in the US. The Vermont is the largest, and then South Carolina. But there are more recently other domiciles established themselves in the US, such as Utah and Montana and Arizona. So overall in the US now, I think there's captive legislation in about 35 separate US states. So they're trying to encourage people to stay at home and not have their insurance company in somewhere like that.
Why? I mean, this may seem an obvious question to perhaps someone who's sitting in the US. Why would a US company have its self-insurance captive vehicle outside of the US? What are the advantages? Why wouldn't it do it domestically?
Yeah, it's a good question, but really it comes down to the experience. There's a large number of service providers in Cayman who've been doing this type of business for many years, and also we work very closely with SEMA in terms of regulations. The regulations in Cayman are firm but fair. Also the capitalisation requirements recognise the risk of the various entities. So those that are writing just risks from the parent company are perhaps regulated with a slightly lighter touch than those who are writing what we call true third-party risks. So those are the main things, and also the fact that the Cayman regulator isn't an elected official helps a lot, because we can see in some US states that one regulator might favour captives and their legislation, and then they might not be elected the next time around, and then things kind of change a little bit. So
you want regulatory consistency.
Consistency and certainty.
Should we be worried about competition, though, from the domestic US market? Is that something that you, as part of the industry, fear for?
At this stage, no. The domestic market really has been stronger in what we would call 831B type captives, which are generally smaller captives with premiums of around $1 million to $2 million. Cayman generally captives generally have larger premium volumes, and I think that will continue. So I don't see any major threat from the US domiciles. It's always in the mix when you're looking at domicile, or the parent company's looking at domiciles, when perhaps they're conducting a feasibility study at the outset, deciding whether to form a captive. But Cayman's done very well over the last several years. I think last year there was 33 new captives formed, and so far this year I think there's around 17 to 20, no, maybe 22 now, I think, after the latest statistics. So we expect it to be up by the end of the year, mid-30s, I think.
And we'll certainly in the second half of the show discuss why it might be up towards the end of the year with the Cayman Captive Forum coming up. As always, we need to take a quick break on Money Sense. Join us again in 60 seconds as we continue our conversation with Kevin Poole on the Cayman Captive Insurance business.
One TradeX knows there's more than one way to invest. One TradeX is the Cayman Islands' only fully licensed online broker-dealer, offering discount trading services to individual investors and traders, hedge fund managers, and family offices. One TradeX has the most competitive online trading prices of any offshore broker worldwide, with no custody or management fees, free demonstration accounts, and no charge to open an account with a $5,000 minimum deposit. Trade stocks, options, futures, bonds, and Forex. Learn more and open your free demo account today at OneTradeX.com. OneTradeX, the Cayman Islands' #1 choice for online brokerage. OneTradeX is licensed to conduct securities investment business by the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority.
This is Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Brought to you by the CFA Society Cayman Islands and sponsored by One TradeX.
And now, more Money Sense.
Welcome back to Money Sense and our conversation with Kevin Poole, who is the chair of the Insurance Managers Association of Cayman Captive Forum. I may have butchered your title there, Kevin, and apologies if I did. Before the break, we were talking about the broad captive insurance industry and the competition and where it comes from. Let's try and, if we may, try and personalise this a little bit more to Cayman, what actually goes on here, how many people operate in the industry, how many people work. So just give us a little bit of flavour as to what happens here on the island in terms of this captive insurance industry.
Sure, maybe I could just start by saying that IMAC, being the Insurance Managers Association, did an economic impact study back in 2017 just to see what impact the captive insurance industry here in Cayman has on the local economy. So overall, it turned out that the industry contributes roughly $100 million per year to the local economy. So that's really broken down. In about $72 million goes to different service providers here on island, $16 million contribution to tourism, and around $12 million to SEMA and the registrar of companies for the various fees and things associated with the captive. So as you can imagine, any of the captive boards, when they come down here for their meetings, they're staying in hotels. Some of them can be very large, and you might have one of these group captives might have 50 members, so they're bringing at least probably 100, 150 people at any one time. So it does very well for the local economy. And also in terms of employees within the captive industry, there's around 300 direct employees within the captive industry. I think just over half of those are Caymanian. So 300 people who work for companies like yours or others like yours, directly employed, providing services to the captive insurance industry. Right, yeah. And outside of that, obviously, there's a lot of ancillary services associated, as I mentioned, with sort of tourism and that type of thing. Audit firms.
Audits, yes.
That type of thing.
People also, like me, investment managers and things like that.
Exactly, yes. So in total, there's 26 insurance managers in Cayman at the moment. So Artex, obviously, we're one of those. They have around, in terms of asset size, there's 70 billion of assets are held by all of these 700 captive insurance companies and writing premiums of around 16 billion. So that gives you a good idea of the size of the market. So although I said there were around 700 individual captive insurance companies, in Cayman we have some legislation called segregated portfolio company legislation, which means you can have a company set up as an SPC, and hanging off of that kind of structure, like a holding company type structure, can be cells. And in addition, those cells, it's around another 630 cells. So it's almost, when you add those numbers up, it's getting close to 12 to 1,300 actual insurance entities here in Cayman.
So that's a fair number of people employed. That's obviously good for the economy. We need to go back to our conversation from a couple of weeks. Well, a conversation on the economics of the island and figure out what that means in terms of percentage of GDP. But it's one of the more meaningful industries then, right, without any doubt.
Right. Yeah. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the Cayman Captive Conference, but the Cayman Captive Conference is a conference that's held every year. This year will be our 26th year, and it runs the week after Thanksgiving, so it starts on Tuesday the 27th of November through to Thursday the 29th this year. And it's organised by the Insurance Managers Association, so we get submissions for speaker topics from people within the industry. Some of those are obviously clients who have their captives based in Cayman, so we can make sure that conference is specifically tailored towards those with an interest in that industry. And we kind of run some general educational type sessions on the Tuesday.
And those general educational sessions, are those open to everybody, or do you have to be a member or an attendee in order to listen and watch?
Well, we encourage any local service providers to come along on the Tuesday for those sort of captive, like 101 type sessions. So it's free to any of the local service providers to attend, or anybody that's attending the conference can go along to those sessions for free. But on the sort of Wednesday and Thursday, then you need the kind of delegate pass to go along to those.
But if someone's listening to today's show and is really interested in what the industry has, or a student at one of the colleges or whatever it might be, thinking about getting involved in it, that might be something on a Tuesday just to come along and listen to the basics. If this has whet their appetite to learn more, they could come along on that Tuesday the 27th, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, we do have some people coming from UCCI, I understand. So we've given them some passes to come along and attend the conference, those that are more specifically focused on whether it be finance in their degree courses. But if anybody was interested in coming along to the general sessions, then just get in touch with IMAC and go to the website, www.imac.ky, and we can try and help you out as far as attending those sessions.
Now, I've been to one or two of these in the past, and they are fairly large affairs. It's not a small gathering of people. Tell us how many people you have registered or you think will be registered for this year's forum.
Yeah, we were checking earlier on this week, and I think numbers were around 1,200 so far registered. We expect around 1,500 by the time registrations close, just before the conference starts. So it's turned into what is the largest captive insurance conference in the world, so Cayman should be very proud of that. And also, I think it's the largest conference in Cayman, so 1,500 people is a lot of people to look after, so the Ritz do a very good job for us in hosting that.
And as you said, that most of those people are not on the island. They're all mostly coming from North America, I assume,
yeah.
and all coming down, staying at the Ritz or another hotel, eating at the restaurants, enjoying the island.
Yeah, exactly, and well, strangely enough, that time of year seems to be quite popular for people to come down to Cayman. So.
End of November from people from the northeast of the US.
Yeah.
I guess a rather flippant aside, if you are looking to book dinner in the last week of November on Ireland, get your reservation in early, because there'll be 1,500 hungry souls who will be wandering the island looking for food.
Exactly. Yes.
Now, the forum isn't the only thing that happens on Ireland in terms of activity for the insurance industry. You also, in terms of helping people, giving back into the community, tell us a little bit about what the association does with that in that respect.
Sure. Well, obviously having 1,500 people attending this conference generates a certain amount of income. So with that income, we plough some of that back into what we have, the scholarship fund. We have a scholarship fund that the Insurance Managers Association has set up. So that's been running for a good number of years now, and we've raised about 3.9 million, which has enabled us to send 48 students away on scholarships. So currently there's 20 away overseas studying at the moment, and we recently announced that there were 6 new scholarships awarded in 2018. And I think the scholarships that we award as through the Scholarship Fund or Scholarship Foundation are quite unique on the island, in as much as we don't say that it has to be finance related in any way like that. So we've had people go away studying aviation, film, veterinary science, and there's some that do some actuarial science and things like that, finance related. But at the end of the day, it's really helping younger deserving Caymanians to progress and come back and help the community.
And presumably those who are interested, those of lower means who might be struggling to afford to send their kids to university, should think about going on the website and learning a little bit more about the scholarship opportunities, because it's cross-discipline, as you say, and therefore they can potentially apply on behalf of their kids.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and we're never short of applicants for the scholarship, so we encourage.
So there's competition involved, but that's healthy.
Yes.
Now, of course, we can't finish today's show without also alluding to this Tuesday the 27th. Our esteemed co-host Amy is actually speaking at the Captive Forum. So tell us, Amy, a little bit about what you're going to be speaking on.
Yes, it will be very exciting, and thank you, Kevin, for inviting myself to speak. We're going to be talking about investment policy statements, and it's going to be very basic, as you said. The Tuesday morning parts are going to be very educational in nature, and really the idea is to bring these board members, bring these trustees together and say, what really is governing your investment policy statement? An investment policy statement is, for these captive funds, you're putting in these premiums, all the time, and you're not always paying out all of the premiums every year, or otherwise that's ruins the purpose, right? So you are actually investing within the fund. The problem is a lot of captive trustees focus much more on their liability side than their asset management side, and have not taken a look at the various pieces of their investment policy statement to see that they're still relevant, to see that they're still invested properly, especially in today's environment, and that they are consistent across the board, and that they know kind of who's doing what. So that'll be an exciting presentation. Would invite anyone to come listen to it.
I guess one could extend that analogy and say it's not probably just captive insurance companies that don't think seriously enough about how their investments should be structured. It's probably all of us more broadly. So that's a lesson there. Tell us, Kevin, we have a couple of minutes. I'm always interested when we have people from industry on Ireland, just to learn a little bit about what sort of skills or experiences somebody who's thinking about getting involved in the insurance industry, the captive insurance industry, should think about getting at university or in further education. What skills are necessary? Do you have to be an actuary? Do you have to? What tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, basically, it helps to have an understanding of finance. So I'd encourage anybody to try and do something maybe accounting oriented. I'm not an accountant, by the way, but my background is more insurance related. So either sort of accounting, insurance, risk management related would be good. Somebody who's good with numbers and organised as well. And generally, a people person in the insurance industry is a people industry. So any of those real skills. Would
and then there are job opportunities both in industry and in the regulator, because you actually, for a few years yourself worked as a regulator, if I'm not mistaken.
I did, yes. I did work for SEMA when I first arrived on Ireland. And
you're still working in the industry, despite that.
I'm still working, yes.
Well, I'm sure it served you well.
Yes, well, it's been helpful. They're a good team over there at SEMA and do a great job. So we continue to enjoy working with them.
There we go. Look, as is always the case on Money Sense, we are mid-conversation and our time rapidly expires on us, and it's unfortunate. Happens every time. Kevin, just to remind us then, the Captive Insurance Forum is coming up on the 27th of November. It runs for 3 days, and you go to the website, which is?
It's www.imac.ky.
imac.ky. Fabulous. So more information can be found there about both the forum, or the conference rather, and also about scholarships and the industry more generally. So Kevin, thank you very much for joining us on the show this morning. You have this substantial conference coming up. You're chair of the conference committee. I wish you well in that. Only 1,500 people to corral and get to the meetings that they need to get to. No stress at all for you there, and not many things that can go wrong with only 1,500 people. So very good luck on that, and I'm sure it'll be an immense success. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been a delight having you. Most interesting conversation. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks a lot.
Pleasure. Now, as a final note before we leave, just wish to thank all of our listeners and remind you that today's show will be available as a podcast on the CFA Society of Cayman Islands webpage, and encourage you, if you have any question or topic that you wish us to cover, to send us an email at moneysense@candw.ky or tweet us at moneysenseradio. We are on Twitter, and we do tweet, apparently. With that, thank you once again, goodbye, and please do tune into Money Sense again in 2 weeks' time.
Money Sense is brought to you with the support of One Trade X. One Trade X, the Cayman Islands' #1 choice for online brokerage.